Welcome. How we doing, folks? This is Mike, and I'm joined by Mike today, who is a great friend of mine. We've been through a lot together, and tonight I don't know, Mike. What's the adjective you'd use for what just happened to us tonight? Expected, textbook,
Fitting.
fitting. I think the outside perspective would be the word losers. We're big idiot losers. And the big, you guys probably guessed it. We bet on the Packers. It's Thursday night. We'll get this out Friday morning. But it's not just betting on the Packers on a random Thursday night game. Me and Mike obviously like gambling together, and I think our most common bet of all time, for some reason, is the Packers prime time, but really Thursday night games. I know I have one that comes immediately to mind. So, when I texted you on Sunday and I was like, hey, the Thursday night game this week, like we have to do it. You were a little bit hesitant at first, but nonetheless, it was too big of an opportunity to bet big on the Packers and then lose in an excruciating way, which is what happened tonight. And we'll get to break it down. But wow.
It's exactly what happened tonight. And it's just another part of our lives that we get to share with everyone else, which is we do this. And if the game that comes to mind for you is the same game that come to mind for me, it's the Titans game,
Yeah.
which was in Green Bay. And Derrick Henry just ran the shit out of the ball. And the Packers never stood a chance. Now, tonight they did.
Yeah.
And for a while there, I thought we had them.
We got plus 350 on the live line at halftime, and then immediately they come out in the second half and put up a quick 2 touchdowns to take the lead. We look like sharp, right? And then, I know this wasn't like a refs thing necessarily at the end, but man, the Lions squeezed another win is what I saw. Holy crap.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going to go is I'm not even that upset with the Packers. I think it's more the Lions winning than it was the Packers losing, if that makes sense.
It does. Let me ask you, are you like fully sold on this Lions team? Because listen, like the media and the public, just people. I mean, it's just like a very, very high sentiment. And I like to think that some of it has to do with how this team came about, obviously how bad they've been, the Dan Campbell, good 2 years. I personally, like, my timer ran out on it. I'm sick of the Lions. I have been all season. Like last season, I think it was like halfway through, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, Lions. And then at some point, it's like, all right, you're in the NFC, like, you're a good football team. Like, I'm just not going to support you, obviously, right? And I haven't seen that timer run out for a lot of people like it has for me. And sorry that this question went on a while, but I really want to hear your thoughts. Like, are you fully sold on this team as the top in the NFL like a lot of people are?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think unlike a lot of people, I was skeptical going into the season, wanted to see if they would drop off a little bit after firing last year, and they didn't. And they've looked unbelievable, and I've slowly become convinced. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago where I was like, all right, this team is a fucking wagon. And I'm all in on them. I think you are skeptical because you have to be,
Right.
because you realize that's the biggest threat to the Eagles.
Totally, 100%.
But the Lions are playing the best football out of any NFL team.
Are they, though?
I don't think that's debatable.
Well, but this game was close, and they still played well. I thought they looked like a good football team tonight, obviously. But the Bears game at the end was very red flaggish. And the Texans game that we watched together on Sunday night was the biggest of red flags. So now I'm counting 3 games. They went to overtime against the Rams for the first game of the year. I mean, they lost to the Bucs, right? So I think I can count maybe like 5 or 6 games where you're like, that's not a perfect football team. And really the depiction I'm getting from everyone else is like, oh my God, this team, like they haven't made a mistake yet. They're the best team I've ever watched. And, and I'll give respect. Obviously, you said it best. I'm scared of this team. They're the biggest threat to the Eagles. I just kind of want to push back a little bit. Is that fair?
I think it's fair. I think we're going to get into the Eagles later, so I'll try and hold off on comparing.
No comparison. That was good.
Comparing.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
I got there.
Uh-huh.
I think it's hard to not compare based on the metrics that you've drawn of them being what the Eagles are supposed to be. Like, if you look at the Eagles, who now I will admit look like a very good football team, and I will do that for the first time this season. I will
Yeah, wow.
give credit where credit is due. In every aspect of what the Eagles do, the Lions do it better.
Better? Are you what makes you say the
I
word
I'd
better? Like that's
I'd
my whole
argue they
point.
have a bet. I'd argue from a running game perspective, their running game is better. Now you have the better individual player who makes better special plays. Their running attack as a whole better. Their passing attack as a whole better. Their
Uh
defense pretty damn fucking similar.
okay, it's not
With
it's
Aiden
that's not better.
Hutchinson, with Aiden Hutchinson on the Eagles level, without him, I give the advantage to the Eagles. Nonetheless, the Lions are doing almost now what the Eagles were doing in the beginning of the season, which was not playing perfect but
That is
still
fair.
winning.
Which
But I
brings up the
think the
question.
Lions, well, before you bring up the question, I think the Lions version of playing imperfect football and winning is better than the Eagles version of playing imperfect
I
football.
don't like
The
that.
Eagles the Eagles start slow. The
Right.
Lions start fast.
They
The
do. I
Eagles
noticed that tonight.
struggle to find the offense. The Lions never struggle to find the
They come
offense.
out
It's
quick,
always there.
right?
I think you can draw a lot of comparisons, but you can also draw a lot of differences. And I think in most of the head-to-head comparisons, you give the advantage to the Lions.
And I'll push back on that, but no, I think there's two questions, right? I think it's one, do you believe in the peaking at the wrong time theory? I've seen it with a team last year named the Philadelphia Eagles that peaked at the very wrong time. I know nothing is as dramatic as that was, but listen, the Eagles started slow. Like they're clearly the worst four games they've had this season were the first four games, and it's only gone up every single game since. We'll see if that continues, right? And then the other question is, you said it. That was the first thing I noticed about the game tonight. I was like, no matter what, it seems like Ben Johnson has a great 15 plays dialed up to where they're gonna put a touchdown on the board, two touchdowns at like a field goal and a touchdown at the least, right? And then it slows down, and then it's second half football, right? And that's when you don't have the creative plays dialed up necessarily. That's when you rely on your quarterback to make plays on third down. Jared Goff had a great one tonight. I'll give him credit for that. The play where the blitz got knocked down and he gets up on a somersault and he's in his face and he's able to complete the ball to Amon-Ra, which was really, I think, the most important play of the game. However, I trust Jalen Hurts to make more plays than Jared Goff, plain and simple. And I don't think that's a stretch, right? So those are my two questions. And I think a lot of your points were maybe a little bit counterintuitive there because I think I'd rather be the Eagles in those two scenarios.
I think in the NFC Championship game, if this game is in Detroit, I like the Lions. If this game is in Philadelphia, I like the Eagles. I think that's how close it is.
Yep.
I'm afraid that what happened to Dan Campbell last year is going to happen to Dan Campbell this year. And now there's literally nobody on the planet Earth with a larger nutsack than Dan Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
So credit to the guy for fucking letting it hang. But it costs you. And there were multiple games last season where it cost him. Obviously, you can look back at that Cowboys game where the lineman didn't report eligible, even though he did.
Right.
They called a 5-yard penalty, whether or not that was a penalty or not. They still went for 2 from the 7-yard line.
Yep.
Like, the guy just goes for it. And even tonight, that third down play to Amon-Ra, yeah, maybe the biggest play of the game. I'll call it the second biggest play of the game. The biggest play of the game was 4th and inches on the 20-yard line.
Unreal.
And they fucking went for it with 40 seconds to go.
And they stumbled.
And they still got it, though.
And they still got it.
You're not going to get that every single time. And just imagine what the narrative would be if they didn't get that. And then if in those 40 seconds, Jordan Love drove the team down or the Packers won in overtime. If the Lions lose that game, it's absurd because The Packers had no timeouts. You kick that field goal 100 out of 100 times. You make the chip shot field goal, and you give the Packers 35 seconds and no timeouts to try and get a field goal,
Right.
which is extremely unlikely. So
Well,
I think
you never know, though,
he
and that's
has
his
to.
whole thing.
I mean, he does it every time, and I think that's the only way it works. If you only do it sometimes and not other times, this goes to the 2-point conversion and everything. Like, you either have to be all in or all out. He's all in, and I think he pushes the line of all in. Like, I don't think any sane coach goes for. I don't think any coach in football history has ever gone for that on 4th and inches with 40 seconds to go. He may be the first one.
Who does it remind you of?
Dan Campbell. Who does he remind me of?
This 4th down aggression in which you look good when it works and you look really dumb. Not as dumb as the guy I'm referencing.
I don't think Nick Sirianni goes for that, though. I don't think Nick Sirianni goes for that.
So they have a very similar ideology with 4th down, and it is to the point of where like they're doing it every time. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And Dan Campbell, I will admit, goes a little bit beyond that. But you referenced the 4th and 7, right? Nick Sirianni's probably not doing that, but it's an extremely similar, aggressive approach and ideology. I have more similarities with these two teams. It fascinates me. I think the quarterbacks are very similar. I think, obviously different stereotypes as far as production this year, call it a wash. And if you want to push back on that, my Jalen Hurts versus Jared Goff, let me remind you, like 2 years ago, even last year, like that wasn't a debate. It was Jalen Hurts, and Jared Goff's had a great year. Okay. The receivers, you got Jamison Williams, you got Amon-Ra, and you got AJ, and you got Devontae. I think that's pretty close to a wash too. I'm obviously biased about a lot of this stuff. The similarities of the running game is, you said it best, like a two-headed horse, very different backs. A power guy that runs through the tackles in a twitchy outside zone passing back. And, Saquon is actually both of those, right? So, and, you can kind of take your pick of, do you want the one guy? Do you want the room? I'm having a lot of fun with the one guy right now. The offensive line, like Lane Johnson, Hall of Fame right tackle. Guess who his predecessor is as far as the best in the league for right tackle? It's Penei Sewell. The offensive lines are great. The coaching, the play calling, Kellen Moore and Ben Johnson, very similar schemes with the play action and quick passes and easy options. And then, I give the edge to the Eagles on defense. And I think anyone on the world should say that now. But they've had their injuries and whatnot. So those are the similarities I see. And it's really lining up, as I've said for the past few weeks. I'm trying to get Gavin, my annoying Lions fan, on to speak his side of views as a collision course in the NFC. And that's really cool to see. And this game kind of solidified that too, because the Packers and Vikings have been lurking. Now, I've noticed something about the Lions that's intriguing to me, Mike. And I kind of noticed it like before the game when I saw Penei Sewell give the hype up speech to like his offensive line. Maybe it was the whole offense. It was very emotional. It was very hardcore. It was the word I want to use is emotional, right? And, I'm not saying the Packers don't do that in some sense. Like everyone does their pregame hype up speech. But there's this whole just emotion and like kind of story almost with this Lions team that Dan Campbell makes. He builds that. He wants that. He wants them going into this game with like this like life or death type of mentality that not only like brings you up into the moment, but like it adds the talent plus like your most amount of, I guess, like effort based on emotion, if that makes sense to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think any team comes really close to that, what he's able to do. And I guess my question to you is like, are you starting to see that is like a true competitive advantage for the Lions? Because I fully believe that it is. And I don't know if it's sustainable through February, but it's looking pretty good so far. And I think a lot of these wins, especially these close ones, is because of that kind of mentality Dan Campbell instills in his team.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to something that you see more out of a college program, where the team is really a team and everyone is united and bought in on the same goal, and there's a culture and they're cheering on the sidelines. And you don't see that out of the NFL because you have guys that are entering the league at 21 and you have other veterans that are 35 plus that are going home to their families. Like, it's just they don't connect on the same level. And I think Dan Campbell has combined this group into a collective that is bought in. I heard someone say it on some radio show. They're the bad boys of the NFL. They're similar to like the Detroit Pistons, the old school
Mm-hmm.
Pistons that would just beat you up and punch you in the mouth and cause fights, and like not in a dirty way, but in like a we are going to fucking kill you in the trenches kind of football respectful way. And they are all about it. Is it sustainable through February? 100%.
Probably.
That is not something that you can lose, because
Mm-hmm.
when you're a team based on running the ball and being an aggressive, hard-nosed defense, and all you have to do is go out there and fucking give 150%, that is 100% sustainable, and it's incredibly impressive that Dan Campbell has been able to build that with an NFL
It's
roster.
really
It's
cool.
just something you don't see.
It's really cool. And the college comparison is beautiful. Yep, that is exactly what I was envisioning. It's really cool to see, you still have that ability in the locker room with adults, people that, this is their 9 to 5 job, right? It's different. It always has been. That's why when, Saban went to the NFL, it didn't land as much. He wasn't as successful, right? You see that all the time with college guys. And Dan Campbell said, fuck it. Like, why not? And he's instilled this emotional, I guess, confidence and like mentality with this team that I think is just really, really evident. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm scared of, because I'm a story guy. I'm an emotional guy. Like, went to school for fucking acting. Like, goddamn, I love seeing a team that gets juiced up from their fucking head coach and just is laying it all out there. It's hard not to like root for and at the very least respect.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree. I think the Eagles and the Lions are the top two teams in the NFC.
I'd say
But
NFL.
I think if the Lions get the number one seed in the NFC, the only team that can beat them is themselves. I don't think
Yeah, it's
that the
fair.
Eagles can go out to Detroit and beat the Lions. It'll be the Lions going for it on a fourth down that they don't get. It'll be them not kicking a field goal and going for it when they should kick a field goal. Like shit like that they are hitting at an incredible rate and going for it every single time. And clearly Dan Campbell showed last year he's not going to tone back in the playoffs, which I respect, because teams like the Cowboys switch up their whole philosophy going into the playoffs and they lose the first round every year because they overthink it.
Yep.
But I think you saw that last year in the Cowboys game. You saw it in other games. You saw it in the 49er game that they blew. They wouldn't slow down and run the ball. They kept running the fucking offense, and they'd go 3 and out, give the ball to the 49ers, and they couldn't stop them.
And
So
that's really what I think an Eagles Lions matchup would come to, because the past like 8 weeks, 10 weeks with this Eagles team have been like, it's really been the same game. I text you every Sunday. I'm like, this is every Eagles game. It's they clearly don't look like the better team or more productive team in like the first quarter, maybe first quarter and a half, but they're only down 9 points. They're only down like a field goal and a touchdown, right? So they're there. And then all of a sudden, they're able to like really slow the game down in the second quarter. You saw this so much with the Ravens game. And then all of a sudden, going into halftime, they're like tied. They're down a point, or hell, they're winning the fucking game, which is what you saw with the Ravens, right? And then in the third quarter, like I'm referencing, like they're a second half team. They clearly are. They rely on the talent to say, we're going to keep this close enough. We're going to figure out our shit. And then we're going to come in the second half and prove that we're the better football team, because it's an even playing field now, right? So I think the Eagles-Lions game, whether it's on the turf in Detroit or whether it's in Philly under the lights with that crowd, it's going to come down to, are the Eagles keeping it close, and will the offense eventually score points, which I'm willing to bet on. Have you seen that formula with the Eagles this season? It's really interesting how it's every game.
yeah, I think it's been working, and it probably will continue to work. The question is, can you keep digging yourself holes that are manageable to get out of?
They're not.
Like
They're
if you
not
do
huge
that with the
holes.
Lions, no, they haven't been huge holes, because they're still holding teams to field goals, getting enough turnovers,
Defense is
enough
really good.
stops. Like if you can't do that, and instead of giving up 2 field goals and a touchdown, you give up 3 touchdowns, like
Yeah,
whoa,
that's the worry.
now you got a big hole.
It hasn't happened yet, though. But you're right. Now the
No, it
Lions would
hasn't.
be the team
So
to do it.
And I think I agree. I think those are probably the two best teams in the NFL. Is there anybody in the NFC that you're afraid of aside from the Lions? Assuming the
No.
Lions are the 1 and the 2, the Eagles would get a home field advantage until they would have to visit
Yep.
the Lions.
Yep.
Is
They
there
might play the
anyone you're
Bucks.
afraid to host?
And I'm afraid to post the Bucks just because it's the Bucks. I mean,
Yeah.
like they have our number. It would be in Philly, and those 2 playoff games we lost to them was in Tampa, and we just like weren't a better team.
Right.
But
So you've got Seattle, Atlanta.
It's really
Minnesota.
The question becomes: is are you putting the Vikings and Packers on the same level as the Eagles and Lions? And even this game being close tonight, the Vikings lost by 1 to the Lions. There just feels like a separation still.
I agree. I think it'd be interesting to see you play the Packers just because, the whole narrative of it's hard to beat a team twice. And
yeah, sure.
Especially being that the first time you guys played was week 1 in Brazil.
What if the Lions and Packers play again? And the Packers, like, let's say the Eagles have to play as the 2 seed, the 3 or 4 seed, and the Packers get in as the 5 or 6. And then you go to Detroit again after losing 2 close games to the Lions. Like, I'd argue that's even scarier.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like the most like go-to storyline of the playoffs is when it's a division rival. It's like, well, it's hard to beat them 3 times.
Yep.
and then they still beat them 3 times. Like it's
for the most part.
It doesn't feel like a real stat. It's maybe happened a couple times. Yeah. No, collision course, man. It's going to be really cool to see. Did I tell you? This Gavin guy I keep trying to bring up. Maybe I'll get him on sometime. He's kind of an idiot. A lot of my friends are. Obviously, all our friends are idiots. We're idiots, but my idiot friends just got really rich over the weekend. They all rode this 12-legger together that I didn't ride because it's a 12-legger. I'm like I'm past the days of 12-leggers on a Sunday, but it hit. Like some of them threw 5 for like 1,300. Some of them threw 10 and 15. One of them, the one that threw 15 though, I found out cashed out in the middle of the Browns game when he had Broncos, and I was like, you can't do that.
Oh,
you can't do that. You got to throw on the Browns before the game, and you got to ride it out. Like you just can't. You can never press the cash out button.
Never.
They're learning though, and now
that's incredible though.
Now they're hooked. They're never going away.
You see that stuff on social media, and it's like that could be me.
Now they have that forever, which, by the way, is you and I very well know is a bad thing.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I want that.
No, I don't. Well, you and I are past the point of like it mattering, but a lot of those guys have only been gambling for like a year, so it's not a good recipe.
No, they're hooked now.
They're hooked. They are. It's been fun because I like almost forced myself in that group chat because they all live in Arizona. But I was like, dude, I gamble more than any of you. Like, let me bring my idiot locks in there for you guys to lose more money. And then the minute I did, they hit a parlay. So, some people are saying. Anyways, you brought up college. Let's break down the playoff. The one last thing I'll say about Eagles Ravens, since we're kind of doing a recap of sorts too, is it really is amazing to me. Like after that first quarter and a half, like we were able to say at the end of the game, like that was a blowout. And they had like a backdoor touchdown too. It's just pretty.
Yeah, it was dominant.
Pretty. There's something there, and obviously I just love this team. I love this team a lot. The playoff came out. Are you pissed?
Yeah.
Why are you pissed?
Alabama getting special treatment for being Alabama.
You want South Carolina over them?
I don't know who I want over them.
See, that's the thing, right?
I mean, but South Carolina, and there's an argument for Ole Miss, have a better resume than Alabama. And there's still an argument that Miami has a better resume. I know as SEC people, and specifically Florida people, we're supposed to hate Miami. And I do. But simply looking at the resume on paper and what they've done this season, the 2-loss Miami team has a better resume than the 3-loss SEC team. And SEC people will hate me, but it's true.
Are you sure? I mean, what was it? Georgia Tech and Syracuse?
Okay, Alabama lost to Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, and who else?
Oklahoma.
Syracuse is just as good as Oklahoma or Vanderbilt.
I think it was Tennessee.
And
They lost Tennessee this year, didn't
Tennessee was the third one.
Yeah, and then Ole Miss was Florida, Kentucky, which I guess on paper isn't awesome, and then Bama, right, or Texas. It was a good team. The third team was a good team, and then South Carolina. So I think the thing that killed South Carolina is when you put their resume up against Ole Miss. And correct me if I'm wrong, they might have played Ole Miss this year, and Ole Miss like killed them. So like it never really made sense for South Carolina to get over Ole Miss, who was like technically the third team out of like this 4-team combo conversation. And then I think Alabama has like the slight edge over Ole Miss, right? So
I'm looking at it. South Carolina actually lost to Ole Miss and Alabama, and their third loss was LSU. So obviously matching them up against each other, you would give the advantage to Alabama or Ole Miss over South Carolina. But if you look at the losses as a collection, South Carolina has the quote-unquote best losses.
They do.
No, they lost the head-to-head, which screws them, so I get it. But
they do. And I texted you and Jared, like, just from a pure, like, watching football standpoint, I wanted it to be Ole Miss. I thought they were, like, the better team out of those 3 SEC teams. I think that Ole Miss team would beat Alabama, and I think that Ole Miss team would beat South Carolina. I think it's that simple.
I think it's a chalk.
I think that Oklahoma loss for Alabama is just so bad. I mean, not to mention the
So is Vandy.
That's obviously the word. But like that Oklahoma, it was the end of the season, and you scored 3 points.
And it was a blowout.
3 points
blowout.
Against a 6-6 Oklahoma team.
Yeah, it's ultimately like to make it in, you have to lose to the good teams. But then again, you look at South Carolina, who lost 3 teams that are all top 25, and their resume looks worse because 2 of the 3 losses are to teams that are also competing for that spot. The SEC is getting screwed over in this playoff thing because the SEC would get 2 out of the 4 when it was top 4. Now that there's 12, 3 losses almost excludes you from this whole thing. And in the SEC, it's hard to have less than 3 losses. It's a competitive schedule. There are good teams. There's really no bad teams. There's like even Vandy and Missouri good years this year.
Right.
Like
there's like 8 or 9 like really good football teams. Like that's what we've been saying the past 4 weeks. That's what we want everyone to understand about like the seeding now. But when it comes to this Alabama thing, like, yeah, I'm kind of pissed off now just like talking through it. Because like if there was ever a year for Alabama to not get the short end of the straw, well, it's this year. They don't have Saban anymore, right? Like it's almost like expected to be a down year. You have 3 losses, and 2 of them are bad ones, like really bad. And you should have lost that Georgia game. And they're still getting in. They're still going to get in. They're pretty much in at this point, right? The committee would almost have to like change their mind or throw in an SMU team that loses to Clemson instead, right? Like it's hard for me to grasp, man. Like I thought this was the year you could kind of put aside the name bias almost, and obviously we're SEC guys, and we think like, yeah, the Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. I think we both agree that all 3 of those teams are better than Indiana, but it's still a little bit annoying with the Bama seeding.
And the amazing part about the Bama thing, and this is why they'll continue to get in, is because assuming they get in, they'll be the 11 seed. Mm-hmm. According to the projected playoff as of now, which can obviously change, Alabama would go and visit Notre Dame. Let's say they take care of business in Notre Dame.
Game.
Not an easy game to win,
but
game. Let's say they take care of business.
That's such a cool game.
Then they go to SMU or Clemson if Clemson beats SMU.
Yeah.
So then Bama wins that game. Then suddenly Bama's in the semifinals. And it's like, oh, this team shouldn't have made it. Now we're in the semifinals. Yeah. And that's what Bama people are going to say. And that's what SEC people are going to say. And then next year, when the 3-loss SEC team gets in over the 2-loss bum team from any other conference, everyone's going to throw a fit. But that SEC team is going to continue to win those games.
Yes, they are.
If Alabama gets in, which it very much looks like they will, it's an easy, I don't know if you can take them to make the Final Four or whatever they call it in college football, but that's a lock.
They've also shown that they can lose to shitty teams, though. So or not shitty, but like, not your your typical blue bloods of college football. So we'll see. It should be
It'll be
interesting
interesting.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, man, just the idea of like a Bama visiting South Bend is really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's got to be a while since that's happened, if ever.
Who before I get to who you're picking for these conference games, who do you think Florida, or who do you want Florida to play in the bowl game?
I'd like them to play a big school.
I want Florida versus Boulder so bad. I want more
Boulder
like
would be cool.
Arizona
Michigan
State
is the
even,
talk.
right? But we've played Michigan in the Orange Bowl, what, like 5-6 years ago?
It feels like we always play them.
You said it better. Like it almost has to be a big name. Like it can't be a Syracuse. It can't be like a frisky ACC team this year. And
See, I'm not mad at the Syracuse though.
No, but like Mike, it has to be a program in which like you're stealing recruits, right? Like it's a whose future is better, right? And like Boulder is one of those programs that's like betting on their future still. It'd be cool to show them that like our future is better now and like kind of build momentum going into recruiting season still.
Which, by the way, the Gators are fucking killing
unreal.
that.
What a week, Billy! Holy fuck! What was it like? 13 flips? Like holy shit, dude! And
20% of Florida State's commits as well.
That is awesome. Shambles.
Not all of them signed this week, but like in the past 2 weeks, we've had 20% of their commits flip verbally.
Holy shit! I was on a sales call at work, and one of the guys I was talking to we talked like 15 minutes at the beginning of the call just about college football because he was at the A&M Texas game. So I just wanted to know about that. I mean, what a fucking game to go to. He was in like the second row of the cadets, but anyways, we were talking about like the week of the flag plants, and I mentioned that I went to Florida and that we did it, and he was shitting on it. And I was like, yeah, you're an older guy. Like, I get it. You're taking the dad boomer stance. But hey, like that, it helps. Like, these are young kids that like see shit like that on social media. Like, that is big, there's like momentum as far as social media with programs and teams and vibes. And when you're playing a fucking flag on your rival who you can take recruits from, that it doesn't hurt. I'll put it that way.
Hard to want to go to the school that just got their opposing rivals' flag planted into their logo on the 50s. So.
Exactly. So let's hold back a little bit on the like that's a bad thing for the sport. There's a competitive advantage when it comes to that. Let's start with Georgia at Texas. Is it going to be a repeat? The line is -2.5. Pretty much a flip 'em, a pick 'em for the SEC championship, which is great to see. So pick your side, Mike. Do you like Georgia to do it again? Or do you like Texas to figure out their mistakes from last time and just keep dominating?
Fucking hate Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But the game is in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like anytime you can get Georgia at plus money, you have to take it.
In Atlanta.
That being said,
they've won. The fact they won, though, is the reason this line is where it is. Like, let's assume they haven't played this year. This line is Texas -4 or 5. So
it's interesting that Georgia won and is not favored in this game.
I mean, Texas is they're billed as the better team. I mean, what we saw last week was really. I know it was only a 17-7 game, but man, they are a pro-style offense. They are a pro-style talent with their O-line and D-line. The guy I was talking to on the sales call, I mentioned the 4th and goal they had that pissed you and I off. Or you took Texas. I was pissed. But they ran it up the gut. They did a fucking halfback dive against Texas, the best D-line in college football. And the guy said, because he was in like the second row, you can visually see, he's like, dude, those Texas guys were fucking huge. Like you knew from the get-go that wasn't going to work. So that's a real advantage, man. Like Texas is a pro-style football team that can beat anyone. But they lost one game this year, and it was to Georgia, who can be built similarly. They also have a rock-star D-line. They also have big boys, and they have a pro-style offense. But I think the reason they lost that game earlier in the season was like Georgia had a really good defensive scheme that cut them off guard, right? Obviously, the talent's there. But maybe this is the reason Texas wins is because like it was almost like you can only do that once.
Yeah, I think Texas was so badly outcoached that it almost like wasn't even the players' faults.
Right.
And it's hard to imagine that happening twice. I'm not saying they're going to outcoach Georgia, but if they can evenly match the coaching, then I agree. I like the players on the Texas side of the ball. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Texas. I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. It's hard to beat a team twice. Who
I
knows
like
if it
Texas
actually
too.
is, but it's a cool saying. So,
I'm gonna take
give me
Texas
Texas.
too, and I think I have yet to win a bet that's like a huge college football game like this year. Like when Georgia and Texas played last time, I took Texas. So maybe don't tell me. But is Boise State potentially going to get upset? They're only 4-point favorites against UNLV. I kind of want to take UNLV in this spot. I mean, obviously everyone's going to bet on Boise State because they don't even know UNLV as a football team here, and the line is only 4 points, which tells me to take the other side. Agree?
That's what it would say. Yes, that's what you would think to
Mm-hmm.
say.
But you
I'm
can't do
not
it.
going to say it.
Yeah,
Though.
you can't do. I feel like the Boise State to you is almost like what the Cowboys are. Like it's you should almost, but like you like I feel like you're like a kind of an honorary Boise State guy this year.
I've been big on Boise State this
Yeah.
year, and I couldn't tell you a single player on UNLV. I can only tell you one player on Boise State,
Yeah.
but it's a fucking important player,
Yeah.
and he is really fucking good
He
at
is really
football.
good.
So I think I'm more betting on Ashton Jeanty than I am Boise State. Nonetheless, Boise State -4. They've had some close games recently.
Yeah.
And let's make a statement. And then how awesome would a home playoff game on that blue field in the second round of the college football playoff? Like, that's just fucking crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You can't take that away from me.
Against who would it? I mean, it would be like it would be Texas if they lose to Georgia. It would be a Notre Dame or a Penn State team, maybe even Oregon if they. So yeah, I mean that would be cool. Ooh, that's what it could be. So if Penn State beats Oregon in the Big Ten championship, and Oregon gets the 5 seed, and then has to play Boise in Boise, like you said, those two teams already played week 1 of the college football season, and it was like weirdly a close game.
It was a very close game. Yeah, that 5 seed I think
cool.
is the most interesting spot because it doesn't look like Notre Dame is going to move up from the 6. Going to assume they stay there. Penn State's at the 5 now. If they lose to Oregon, they're still going to make the playoff, but you have to imagine they drop. If Oregon loses, they drop to the 5. Unless, of course, Texas loses, then because then Georgia goes into the top 4. Now Texas and like
there's a chance that it's Penn State and Georgia both win, and then either way, if you're this Oregon team or you're this Texas team, like think about it with Oregon, they're undefeated. They're pretty much the only team that's undefeated, right? They're the 1 seed. They've been the 1 seed for what, 7 weeks now? Think about like having to play now 4 playoff games in a row after being in the driver's seat all year. You got to travel across the country and go to a weird Boise team that almost beat you, right? Well, first of all, you got to play, Iowa State or Arizona State, right? Or maybe even Clemson in that 12th, right? So it's, I mean, Clemson, Oregon, like that's not a walk-off, right? So it's really cool how it's set up this way. It's really cool how, maybe the conference championships don't influence if you're going to make the playoff anymore. But man, like you got it. There's a big enticement to win that game at Penn State. You want that bye, right? You've earned that bye. Penn State, Oregon, -3.5 Oregon. I'm riding Penn State here. I think it's a wash. I don't think Oregon's a better football team. I
think they are.
Penn State's pretty fucking good, dude. They're pretty fucking good. They're arguably the best team in the Big Ten. I know they lost to Ohio State.
They looked bad against Ohio State.
They did look bad against Ohio State. I think that was the only game all year they've looked.
Yeah, because they don't play anybody else.
I know. And that's the thing with Penn State every year. I don't know. Something's just telling me Penn State here, Mike. I'm a little bit of a Penn State guy, but
Yeah, if I had
not
to like,
huge.
if I had a lock of the week for college football championship Saturday, it would be Oregon minus three and
Wow.
a half. That line is way
I
too
just like
small.
that Penn State is like an underdog in this situation and like kind of just gets to ruin everything. All it takes is one game and you're a really good team. Like why not you to win this one game, right? I don't know. I get Penn State vibes here. I like Penn State in that game. I don't like two upsets, SEC and Big Ten though. So yeah, give me Texas the favorite in the other one. I really like that. I'd like to throw a parlay on that. Those are obviously the two biggest conference championship games. You know, Iowa State at Arizona State. I'd like to see Arizona State win this game. I love their coach. That crowd's awesome, and I'm a middle man for this game. I've mentioned a lot of times. I have my friend group up here all went to Iowa State, and then my friends from Colorado Springs. Well, they all live in like Phoenix now, and some of their like siblings go to Arizona State, so they've like gone to a lot of games this year. But wow, 15 versus the 16 for the Big 12 championship. I like ASU, I guess. Ooh, maybe I like Iowa State in this because a lot of people are going to like ASU.
I think I like Iowa State just because
I
I
do
don't know a
too.
ton about either team. I think Arizona State has the better offense. Iowa State has the
Yes,
better defense.
correct. Iowa
And
State, I think, is built more like a football team, and I think Arizona State is a little bit like energetic and fun and frisky, and give me like a sturdy football team in the Big 12 championship.
yeah, and I know it's not a lot of points, but in a game that feels like a toss up, I like getting the points.
And I like Clemson
Iowa
money
State.
line because I have to. If Clemson wins this game, they lost last week, but still can get in the playoffs. Wow. I'd win a lot of money on that future I placed for a Texas, Notre Dame, Clemson, all to make the playoff parlay. It was like 8-1.
Yeah, it's so hard to imagine that SMU is going to be in the first ever 12-team playoff.
I know. But Clemson doesn't deserve it by any means, and yet here they
No.
are.
And like there's just so many different Clemson teams that can come
I
out.
know.
There's weeks where they come out and Klubnik looks awesome. And it's like, all right, this is Clemson. And then there's weeks like the South Carolina game, like the Georgia game, week 1, where their offense is just non existent.
Right.
And I have no idea anything about SMU. I don't know if their defense is good or not. But if their defense has 11 people on the field, I think that might be good enough to stop Clemson on a bad day. And that scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I will take Clemson, though, as dogs because I feel like it's very rare, once again, with the Iowa State thing, that you get a game that's pretty damn even and you get Clemson as the underdog. Maybe that's the old school thinking of me, but
especially after last night, you want to see your friend make money or today.
Yeah, not as much that, but that'd be cool for you.
Packers lost again. I told you I went to the Bill Simmons did a live show here in Denver, and he did it with Ryan Russillo.
Yeah.
Two of like the top 3 sports podcasts, and they do a lot of stuff together because they're on the Ringer Network. Part of My Take is the other one. But it was really cool. It wasn't really cool like to start on paper because they came out in their first segment. Literally the first thing they talked about, they're in Denver. They just saw the Nuggets beat the Warriors was called Jokic porn. So they talked for just 30 minutes about how amazing Nikola Jokic is, and clearly, obviously, that there's a lot of relation to Joel Embiid, and they were just shitting on Joel Embiid. And then I think I gave away a tell in the crowd that I was like not a Nuggets fan and even a Sixers fan. By the way, I was like shaking my head and putting my head in my fucking hands. But it was cool, man. I learned those guys they're veterans at the whole podcasting thing. It's really cool, like kind of seeing them play off each other. And like when I'm on my like sales calls or when I'm like performing, one of the things that I've always tried to do with like the way I communicate is I try and deliver the message. I try and tell the story. I try and be performative, but I still try and be myself and like make it so that people don't understand that like that's my true objective, right? You're almost like hiding your objective or like what you're trying to really do behind you, the person, like just you being yourself. So like just the way they're really able to like communicate and like ask questions with each other and like interrupt each other, right? But it feels natural, but they clearly have notes and there's like things they want to get to. It's really cool how they did it. So yeah, it was a cool experience.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, when's our first live podcast for
Our first live show.
four
Are we
listeners?
selling out Madison Square Garden soon?
I think it's in the cards. I don't know. 2025, big year.
2025. I heard that's our year.
I heard that's what people were saying. Not us, but some people.
No, but why not us?
Why not us? Why not New York in January? I'm gonna visit the city. I think January like 6th through 12th.
Oh,
You down?
hell yeah. Let me know. I'll be there.
All right, sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
Live pod coming that weekend that we definitely actually won't really do.
I was going to say we'll probably get too drunk again and then not actually do it.
We will be with our NBA correspondent
worst.
more than likely, though, if we were to make that happen. So
Mm.
maybe we'll do something there. Yeah. Yeah, no, but those guys, they
Nice.
love talking NBA. They didn't even talk a ton of NFL. It was cool to hear them because they did a segment where they just asked, like, who would you rather have type shit. And one of them was Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix. They both said Jaden Daniels, but it was cool to hear him break it down. I even videoed some of that one because that's been one of our huge debates. Bo Nix is still in it, by the way. I know Jaden had a really impressive performance on Sunday. That was kind of a bounce back. But Bo Nix did what he had to do on a Monday night to catch eyes. It wasn't even necessarily about his stat line on Monday night. It was a standpoint of the Broncos don't have a lot of primetime games, which equals voting for awards at the end of the season. And Bo Nix got the job done in a pretty incredible way because, wow, what a game that was.
Yeah, I still think there's value. He's now back up to like plus 250.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I texted you the other day, but I just have to bring it up. I threw a small amount of money, sprinkle, on Brock Bowers for Rookie of the Year. And I just think it's stupid not to. He is having one of the quietest, greatest tight end seasons in the history of tight ends as a rookie on a terrible team where he's had a quarterback conundrum. He had Minshew, then
No
O'Connell,
quarterback.
then Minshew, then O'Connell, now back to O'Connell, I think. And he is number 4 in receiving yards.
Unreal.
Out of any player, receiver or tight end. He is, I think, 300 yards away from the rookie tight end receiving yards record.
He'll get
He's
like
2 receptions away from the tight end receptions yards leader for a rookie. And he's not going to get the touchdown rookie record. But
I think he deserves it, Mike. Like, I think he deserves it now if the season were to end today. But the thing I texted you was like, I get it, but the line hasn't changed. It's been 10-1 for like 4 weeks now. And like you said, he's 4th in receiving. He's breaking records. He's amazing. So like, when would the line change? And it's clearly not a factor on Brock Bowers. It's just, more so a quarterback award. And there's 2 really good rookie quarterbacks that also deserve this award.
Yeah, so, I think that's ultimately what it'll come down to is it's a quarterback award. I mean, I was talking to somebody at work about this the other day. They brought up a great point. If it's not a quarterback award and it's truly the best rookie, you give it to the damn offensive lineman on the Chargers.
For Joel, yeah, for sure.
He's fucking unreal.
I told you this, like week 3. I literally bet the Chargers over the Steelers. I was like one of the 2 lock of the weeks I lost this year. And I literally broke it down of like, I'm betting Joe Alt locks down TJ Watt. He's a stud, man.
He is one of the best offensive linemen in the league. I think it's probably safe to say top 10 already. And his rookie season isn't even over. I mean, if that's not Offensive Rookie of the Year, I don't know what is. Now, obviously, like we've said, it's a quarterback award, and that's why it'll be Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix. But the best rookie on offense in order would be Joe Alt, then Brock Bowers.
Or vice versa. I think that's totally fair.
The clout won't allow it, but
yeah. It's not even necessarily a quarterback award, and this is obviously said all the time about MVP, especially this year when we get down to is it going to be Saquon or Josh Allen? But it's a quarterback league. Like that's the most important position. That's where all the eyes are. It's just going to equal those type of things, right? But yeah,
And
man,
I get it. I mean, the quarterback has to do more. The quarterback knows every single player's play on all plays.
Mhm.
Receiver or tight end just has to know their own play. I mean, the quarterback does a lot.
I
So I
didn't
get
even
it.
think
And
of the whole Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew cycle too, and he's third in
yeah, and
unreal.
he's
Like
fourth in receiving.
he's a fucking tight end. He's a rookie tight end, and he's fourth in receiving. That's crazy. Think of all the
Mhm.
receivers that are making $30 million plus that he's beating. It's crazy.
Mhm.
Let me see if like they're even giving odds for Joe Alt. They're giving odds for Lad McConkey over Joe Alt. Yeah, he's not even listed on FanDuel. That's
Yeah, I
bullshit.
mean, ultimately, an offensive lineman just doesn't win that award, which I understand. But yeah, I mean, you tied it in really well to MVP, and I think it'll be interesting to what happens this year. I think ultimately, deep down, Saquon Barkley will win Offensive Player of the Year, and
If he breaks the rushing record, how can you not give him MVP?
because it's a quarterback league, like you said.
It's a passing league, and he just broke Eric Dickerson's long-held rushing record in a season. How can you not give
Right,
that guy MVP?
because Josh Allen plays quarterback.
But he hasn't been like the best season ever. I know he's been incredible. That's why he's the minus 250 favorite in MVP according to FanDuel. But like, come on, it's not like
I hear
above
what you're
and
saying, but
you get
deep
it.
down,
Like, ugh.
I understand and I hear you, but I know that deep down Saquon Barkley is not winning MVP.
If he stays on this pace, I think he does. Which is still a big question. It's a pretty incredible pace he's on. And next week, which could help his case, is Bills at Lions. What a game,
Mm.
week 15. But when we're talking about the NFC race, this game was really important tonight because the Eagles beat the Packers week 1. So if they had lost this game, we're both at 2 NFC losses. Both of us lost to the Bucks. They would have lost to the Packers, Falcons, right? So we would have had the tiebreak. But now if they like lose to the Bills, well, that's an AFC team. We're both at 2 losses. Lions will have that 1 seed still. Do the Lions lose 2 more games this year? It's hard to argue that they will. So maybe it's looking very glim after tonight. I'll put it that way. And the Eagles could very easily win out, which by the way I've called since week 6.
Well, let's start with week 14. How
Mm-hmm.
about that?
I like it. Well, and maybe one of the reasons I brought up a huge game in week 15 is because this slate is PU. This is disgusting stuff. It's Panthers Eagles, it's Saints Giants, it's Falcons Vikings, which is maybe the best game. Like Raiders Buccaneers, Jaguars Titans, Jets Dolphins. Oh, Seahawks Cardinals, I guess is intriguing, and then like Bills Rams, I think was kind of like the game that they almost had to lean on this week for the early and afternoon slate, and that game is not intriguing by any means. It's only a 3.5-point line for Buffalo. Interesting, and then it's Chargers Chiefs on the Sunday night game, which is really I think is that the only good game this week, Mike, besides the one we just watched?
Yeah, Chargers Chiefs is the best game of the slate.
Thank God it's
I
Sunday
mean,
night.
Browns Steelers is like mildly interesting if the Browns can keep it close because also Jameis Winston's playing football, so it's automatically interesting.
Have to watch.
That Falcons Vikings game is interesting. The Falcons need to somehow find a win because the Bucks are hosting the Raiders, and if the Bucks win and the Falcons lose, suddenly the Bucks are on top of the NFC South, which a few weeks ago seemed impossible. The Bucks have the easiest strength of schedule to finish the season. If they start digging themselves a hole, the Falcons being them, then they're in trouble of losing the division. They've already played the Bucks twice, and it's funny because they've beaten them twice, and they still might not win the division.
And Kirk Cousins has looked really bad the past 3 weeks. There's Penix
Yeah, so
conversations.
there are some interesting storylines. You have to dig for them a little bit, but
definitely have to dig. But
I
you
think
said
this'll
that you like the slate
yeah.
more because of the bad games.
Yeah, I think this will be, and credit to the NFL for their script writing. The past 2 witching hours of the 1 o'clock window have been fucking cracked.
Cracked.
And I was falling asleep at like 1:45 last
Yeah.
Sunday on the couch, and I was like, "This sucks. There's no good games. It's boring." And then even after halftime, everyone just started going sicko, and it was like
Mhm.
touchdown, touchdown, field goal, pick, touchdown, and I think all those games except one were one-score games going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
I mean, it was awesome, and with all of these weird games, it seems like we're going to get some weird, funky December football, and I think it's going to be really fun to watch from 3 to 4:30.
And another huge storyline to watch is what? It's 5 weeks left? 5 weeks left. And I have just kept a stronghold on this 1 game lead in the lock of the weeks. You went on a 2 game losing streak in the middle that kind of flipped the switch because you were holding that 1 game lead on me for a while. But I am now 11-2 in lock of the weeks, and you are now 10-3 in lock of the weeks. And yes, we are
round of
losers.
applause for us.
We're and it's obviously great numbers for anyone, but just considering how big of losers we are, pretty cool stuff. There will be a 30 for 30 someday. But we got to keep it going, and I don't necessarily know what my lock of the week is yet. But can we 3-2-1 it, given the bad games? And I'm tired.
Yeah, let's just fire away.
Panthers at Eagles. It's minus 13.5 Eagles. Do you want to bet the Panthers here? It's a lot of points.
Yeah, I'll take the Panthers. Fuck the
yeah,
Eagles.
honestly, it's a lot of points. It's a little...
Bryce Young's playing good football.
I'm going to take the Eagles, but they're not going to be my lock of the week.
I could care less about your lock. Actually, I care a lot about your lock of the week, and
I know. And
really need you to
haven't been
out.
as annoying as you were when you had a 1 game lead.
I mean, I was also undefeated for a while.
Saints at Giants. Saints -4. Game of the week. Jesus Christ.
God damn it.
This is torture. Thank God we're ending the podcast with this. 3, 2, 1. Giants?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, 4 points for the Saints?
I just think the Giants might be dead.
They might be dead.
Who's their quarterback? How do they score points? I think they might be worse at home. They're bad on the road.
Might be they might be worse at home. They're bad on the road. Giants football, but I don't like 4 points for the Saints. So, and they can't be
the Giants have lost their last 5 games and only covered 4 points in any of those games in an OT loss to the Panthers.
Dayball's playing for his job. Oh, you know what?
Flip me to the Saints. I'm on the Saints.
Flip me to the Saints. I agree because the Giants also clearly want to lose. And maybe it's not really up to the head coach, but why did you start Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock? Why did you do that? Was it tickets? Was it? I think it was because they're like, we kind of have an excuse to do it, so let's do it because it's a worse outcome for us.
And then we can still lose games, which is good for us.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we both flipped to the Saints there. Look at us.
That's awesome.
But yeah, fuck that. I'm not betting the Giants. Okay, Browns at Steelers. Steelers -6.5. I'd say that line is pretty spot on given what we've seen out of the Browns. Dude, this sucks, man. I've bet against the Steelers every fucking week. They burned me last week. They fucking burned me last week. Oh my God. That Bengals game. Bengals are dead, so I don't have to bet them on it anymore. But Jameis, Russ, Steelers, are you convinced? Can you give your pick first here, please?
I've been convinced on the Steelers for a while now, and I'm still in on them, even after they lost to the Browns 2 weeks ago.
They did lose to the Browns.
It's just
6.5.
Jameis has had 2 really good games back to back, and I don't think he has 3 really good games in him. And they played 2 weeks ago. The Steelers should have film. I'm taking the Steelers. I'm laying the points. I don't feel good about it, but I can't take the Browns here.
Oh, I have no idea where you go in this game. This is a weird game to pick. I'll take the Steelers. I can't do it anymore. I'm giving up. But it means
the Steelers.
Lose.
I mean, if the Steelers win this game, that's huge. They'd be 3-1 in the division,
right?
And at least a game up
Ooh,
on the
that makes me like the
Ravens.
Browns. I think this comes down to the wire in that division.
It still could.
I'll keep it with the Steelers. I'm literally am like 0 and fucking 12 when I bet against them this year, so I'm just not going to do it
You're
anymore.
gonna cause me to
Falcons
lose.
at Vikings, yes, I am, is -5.5 for Minnesota. And yeah, Falcons are 6-6, and the Vikings are 10-2. However, the Falcons are the one that are leading their division right now. Kirk Cousins' revenge game. Give me the Falcons. Give me the Falcons. The Vikings have had so many close games, and I have a lot of respect for Kevin O'Connell winning these close games. But yeah, I'll take 5.5 points. I'll take a little bit of a bounce back with this Falcons team. I think this is just a close game in general.
I agree. I'm taking the Falcons. It's too many points. I know the Falcons are playing bad, but the Vikings are in no way, shape, or form playing good football. They're winning close games. It reminds me of that year where they went it was either 8-0 or 8-1 in like one-score games,
and then they
and
lost to the
first round of
Giants.
the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
Yep. This kind of seems like that, and they're just not that good.
But like I said, respect to Kevin O'Connell. Like, that's just a testament of good coaching.
It's what he does.
He's one of my favorite coaches in the league. He doesn't get talked about enough. I love that guy.
Agreed. And with like not great rosters ever, he puts together a football team.
10-2, 6-6. 2-10, 6-6. Raiders at Bucks. And unless I change my mind going through the rest of the games, I'm going to take Bucks -6.5 as my lock. I think the Raiders have had some close games, and there's clearly been some juiciness with Brock Bowers and whatnot. But you're visiting a Bucks team in Tampa that have been just incredible at home this year. And they're not as injured as when they lost a lot of these games that made you question the Bucks. Mike Evans, I know, is questionable, but he'll probably play. Same thing with Bucky Irvin. I saw like Jacoby Myers for the Raiders was frisky. The Raiders are still a bad football team. We need to all remember that. And I like betting on good football teams this time of year. And I think 6.5 is a little bit low. So I'm going to lay the points for the Buccaneers to come out. And I think this is a blowout. I don't think this game is ever close. I think the Bucks will raise eyebrows after this game, and then they're really just an above-average team. But if there's one thing that is for sure about this Buccaneers team, is they can beat up on bad teams when they're healthy. So I like the Bucks.
I'm going to take the Raiders. One, because you made the Bucks your lock of the week. Two, because I don't think the Bucks are that good. And three, because of everything you said as your reasoning. The Bucks are not good at home. They've lost their last 3 games at home. They are still not completely healthy. They have not been blowing out bad teams. If you remember, they literally should have lost to the Panthers last week. They literally should have lost to the Panthers.
Yeah, but that's a division game. It's different. That's why I like the Bucks this week. It's like you can't have 2 close games, 2 bad teams in a row, right? Can you?
You can when you're a mediocre football team.
They might be bad. Damn it.
Raiders.
I might change my pick. We'll see. Jaguars at Titans. -3.5 for the Titans. They're favored. The Titans are favored by over a field goal to any team this year. Oh, it's the Jaguars. That makes sense. Totally cool to skip this game. Just say the words. But if you aren't going to say the words, 3, 2, 1.
Titans.
I guess, right?
I made this pick solely based off the fact that the favorites have been dominating.
The Lions have not meant anything. The Lions, we talk about 6 points seems like a lot. 3 points seems like maybe not as much. Guess what? 6 points and 3 points in a line is probably the same thing this year. That's kind of how it's felt.
The favorites are covering at an insane rate. Mm-hmm. And I normally, in this position, take the divisional team on the road getting points. Yeah. It's not that much worse. The Jags are not that much worse than the Titans. I think there's an argument that they're better.
Yeah.
I don't think they are, but there's an argument.
Yeah.
But I will still stick with the Titans here.
Yeah, and the Titans have a little just better vibes. That defense isn't awful. I know they had a terrible week last week. And Will Levis has something to prove. Is Trevor Lawrence even playing in this game? I don't think he is.
No,
he's on an IR. Holy shit, they put him on
Yeah,
IR?
he's done for the year.
Damn. Do you agree with that 3-game suspension on that hit? It's a tough one. It's a
Interesting.
big debate this week. It's a huge debate this week.
Did you
I
hear
don't
what
want to get into
Brady?
it too much.
No, but did you hear what Brady said about it?
I did. He took a,
It was very interesting.
neutral, but I think it was very honest too, because like he just comes from he played in the early 2000s when football was arguably the most violent it's ever been.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to hear whenever he gives football takes on today's NFL, he kind of shits on the quarterbacks.
Yeah, totally. The
Like,
quarterbacks have been
he kind
bad.
of is. Yeah, I mean, justifiably, yeah. But like, it's interesting. Like, there are other guys, like especially in other position groups, like receivers of the past are hyped to see receivers now do cool shit. I think quarterbacks of the past, deservedly so, are not impressed with quarterbacks of the now.
Yep.
And one of those things is learning how to not get rocked, because he should have slid earlier. He should have slid earlier. It was a violent hit. It was unnecessary. I don't hate him getting ejected from the game. I'm not sure if a 3-game suspension was necessary. The hit was still wrong, but Trevor Lawrence put himself in a vulnerable place where people get hit.
And listen, like, Trevor Lawrence is like, obviously he's not like a dual threat guy, but like he's had big carries before. Joe Burrow had a 50-yard rushing touchdown this year. So there's fake slides. Josh Allen will try and run you over. So these guys have to decide, is it like, am I going to get in trouble or suspended 3 games? Or am I about to get embarrassed by a QB because I didn't want to tackle him, right? That's the big problem that's come out of just like QB protection as a whole, and these like roughing the fucking, they got to figure it out. It's going to become a problem. I think it already is a problem.
I agree.
Too much time on that game. Jets at Dolphins. Dolphins -5.5. Fuck.
Dolphins.
The favorites have been good. The favorites have been good.
Jets are dead.
It doesn't matter that this line is 5.5. It doesn't matter that the Jets could have they've been so bad that they've got to be good at some point. The favorites and the better teams win. The Jets are dead. I am also taking the Dolphins here, and this is me trying not to convince myself to take the Jets.
I think the Jets, with the loss, get eliminated from the playoffs officially.
They've been out.
Well, I know. I'm just saying officially, whatever. They would officially be eliminated.
What great timing for an Aaron Rodgers documentary to come out on Netflix. Holy shit.
I am so pumped for that.
What a world we live in. My God. Holy that's bad.
What do you got? It's going to be so cool, though.
It's going to, we should break down that whole fucking thing on the podcast. We should,
yeah.
I like it. Seahawks at Cardinals. Division game. 7-5, 6-6. I think I look at pretty much this whole division, even the Niners, because they still have decent, quarters every now and then, as the exact same. Every single one of these teams is the exact same. I think these 2 teams also played 2 weeks ago, didn't they?
They played 3 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago. It was Cardinals at Seahawks, and it was the 16-6 game. That feels like yesterday. So that said, I'm taking the Cardinals. I'm -2.5. I think these teams have the same record coming out of this game, not only in overall, but in head-to-head matchups, because I think they're even teams. I don't know if that's good. I don't know. I don't think the Seahawks should beat the Cardinals twice in the season. The Cardinals I think that was the worst game of the season 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the Cardinals as well. I like the favorites. They've been winning. This will be the week that Vegas clears us and all the dogs win, but I agree. I like what you said. I don't think that the Seahawks deserve to beat the Cardinals twice.
Bears at Niners. Kyle Shanahan is, according to Bears fans, playing his future team. Bears fans think they're getting Kyle Shanahan as their head coach next year. They're fully convinced.
That's absurd.
Maybe. That'd be awesome.
He's not going anywhere. And if they make a change, they are idiots.
-3.5 Niners. I'm taking the Bears, actually. Niners bad.
But I don't think the Niners are dead yet, and I think this game keeps them alive.
It's the new interim head coach juice.
Yeah, I'm out on that.
Okay. They're going to play behind him, though.
That guy, pretty cool guy. He's got to be living the dream right now. He got promoted from like what offensive line coach was he? Running backs coach? I think
I
he was
have no
offensive
idea,
line coach.
actually. Wow.
And then
That
he
would be...
became offensive coordinator. And then a week later or 2 weeks later? 2 weeks later, became interim head coach.
You know who had a similar life cycle to being a head coach? Dan
Antonio
Campbell.
Pierce? Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell. So it was like, 2016, I think. And the Dolphins fired their head coach, and he was like the tight ends coach there. But they brought in Dan Campbell, and they like won a decent amount of games, and he caught some eyes. And then I think he did the assistant thing some more, and then eventually he got another shot. And clearly he's a good head coach. So I don't even know who the guy's name is we're talking about. But good luck, man. Good luck. Why not you? Bills at Rams. It's only 3.5 Bills on turf. That Bills team can win anywhere, whether it's a snow game like they had or a fast-paced turf game in LA. There's travel there. There's maybe a little bit of no. I'm taking the Bills. I don't like the Rams.
Nope. Bills is my lock of the week.
That feels pretty simple though.
I'm sticking to simplicity.
-3.5 is your line.
Mm-hmm. The Bills are a good football team. The Rams are not a good football team. I think the reason that all of these NFC West teams are all around 500 is because they're beating up on each other and sort of winning the games against the bad teams and losing the games against the good teams. None of them are that good. They're all like just below mediocre. And the Bills are playing some damn good football right now.
Your lock of the weeks have just been like the ones that look obvious, and it works out for you. I think I try and find like the loophole, but I don't even need to.
I took the Bears like 3 straight weeks, and then the Steelers 3 straight weeks.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, maybe that was like the simplicity. Like you were just going to keep taking those teams, or you were going to take something that's like this line seems pretty obvious, right? That's. I mean, I'd feel comfortable if I were you with that lock of the week.
I feel happy sitting on my couch right now with
I have to watch Bucks Raiders now. You did choose one of like 2 games that are decent this week to do your lock of the week. Probably smart.
Yeah, and before we get to the last 2 games, I wanted to bring up something cool. There will be a bunch of head coaches on the hot seat at the end of the season, and I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but Mike McDaniel is 1-15 in his history of being the head coach of the Miami Dolphins against teams at or above 500.
Oh my God. 1-15?
So he'll be on the hot seat at the end of the season unless they miraculously snag that 7th seed, which looks unlikely. Who knows if they'll keep him or not, but how
Let's relate it. We talked about Dan Campbell and like the emotions and kind of like how that's a competitive advantage. I'd say Mike McDaniel is maybe like almost an opposite of a head coach. I still like Mike McDaniel. I love the character. I think it'd be cool if he was my head coach. But like when you're an underdog, when you're playing good teams, you kind of need some of that juice, emotionalness to kind of give you some of that edge. I don't think he's a guy that can bring that to the table. Clearly. 1-15. Wow.
No. I think his way of like building the culture is like being boys with the guys. And like that's cool and all, and getting along with everyone is cool. But like
I draw cool
when it's time to like get down to business, I don't know how good he is at that.
Mm-hmm. Are you on like your couch with your laptop?
I am.
Nice. How do you like it?
Thank
Decent
you.
setup?
It's moderate. I feel like the camera's been moving a lot because my leg's been moving. But
yeah, you've looked really weird this whole time.
Nice.
I'm kidding. Chargers at Chiefs. Finally, thank God it's Sunday night. Would really suck if we had a slate like this and then a bad Sunday night game, kind of like the Monday night game. But Chiefs -4, and yeah, I'm gonna bet against the Chiefs. I love betting against the Chiefs. I don't like this team. I think this is very similar to my Lions bet today. It's like, yeah, the Chargers could win this game outright. Are they going to? Probably not. Even though they, I think, are very even football teams. 8-4, 11-1. I know. I saw this like TikTok where it was like all the Chiefs' close wins added up this year. If they lose all of them, they're like 4-8, which maybe is a stretch. But like that's I'm going to take the Chargers. 4 points. I don't think that's a respectful line to what these teams really are. And yeah, maybe the Chiefs win by a field goal, but I cover. So I'm taking the Chargers.
I'm going to take the Chiefs because I hate betting against the Chiefs as much as I hate them. I think this is an interesting week for them because if you look ahead to their schedule, it's extremely winnable after this game. Browns, Texans, who haven't looked great at home. At Steelers is weird, but like they'll handle business. And then Broncos, which the Chiefs own the Broncos. And so I think this is the week now. Week 2 of Pacheco back. You have DeAndre Hopkins now with multiple weeks in the system. I think this is the week where, like, if the Chiefs, like, blow out the Chargers, it's like, here we go. Chiefs are turning it on at the right time.
They are.
You talked earlier about, like, getting hot at the right time. It seems like the Chiefs always do that. And I think this is a game where the Chargers, in a way, are almost trending down a little bit. J.K. Dobbins is out for the year. They're not going to be able to rely on that run game. I'm nervous for the Chargers.
You're convincing me.
And I'm nervous for the NFL that this is the week where the Chiefs turn it on and become Super Bowl contenders.
I think you're onto something there. I really do. I'm a story guy. I'm a story guy. That makes a lot of sense to me. That right there makes a lot of sense to me.
Right, because it's not a question of will the Chiefs turn it on and make a run in the playoffs. It's when is the moment when they're going to turn it on. And it seems like right now, with 5 weeks to go, now seems like the time.
I totally agree. But I think will is still a fair question. I think there's a scenario that they don't.
I think after winning 2 Super Bowls and 3 out of the last 5, and going to the AFC Championship game in the last 5 straight years, like, it would be stupid to expect them not to at least make the AFC Championship game.
The AFC Championship game should be Bills Chiefs, and the NFC Championship game should be Eagles Lions.
Yeah, I think those are the 2 best teams in each conference.
Yep.
I mean, in the AFC, it's interesting because, like, no, but I agree. I think all the other teams are on a different level. Like, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Texans, the Colts.
I will say, I do think the Steelers could beat the Chiefs in round 2 in the divisional. I think if the Steelers and Chiefs were to play, the Steelers could win that game. And then it could be like Bills-Steelers. I think if they play the Bills win that game. But I think they could be a team that beats the Chiefs and upsets them in the playoffs. And I don't want to bet on Mike Tomlin in a playoff game. But just saying. Okay, there's one more game, Mike. It's your game.
Game of the week.
Game of the week. It's Bengals at Cowboys on a Monday night game, which gives you, I guess, like, there's some Thursday games. You haven't had to run miles, and it seems like a good amount of time. So
I was going to say that will mark 2 weeks since the last time that I had to run miles.
I don't know what I'm supposed to bet in this game because I literally just said 2 minutes ago that I can't bet on the Bengals anymore, and I don't have to, but they're playing the Cowboys. Am I going to bet on the Cowboys? It's 5 points in Dallas, which is worse than an away game.
Yeah, we suck at home.
Cowboys could win. They could keep being frisky and maybe even convince you a little bit more that they can make the playoffs. But however, Mike, there is a scenario in which, like, the Bengals are playing a bad team finally, right? And they can obviously put up 40 points in any game. Can Cooper Rush put up 40 points? I don't think so. So I think the Cowboys could win this game. I also think you could sneakily be running a lot of miles.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of scared because it's a big range of, like you said, the Bengals put up points with ease, but their defense is arguably the worst in the league. And Cooper Rush is coming into his sort of what he did last time he came in for a long stretch for him. He's slinging the ball. He's throwing it downfield. They realize they can't run the ball at all, although Rico Dowdle is coming along to be somewhat usable on the field. He just had his first 100-yard rushing game. It was the Cowboys' first in like 25 games or something out of a running back. I just don't think the Bengals can stop anybody. And obviously, I'm taking the Cowboys as a Cowboys fan. I'm also taking the Cowboys, I think, as a smart bettor, getting 5 points at home, where obviously the Cowboys haven't looked great. I just don't think the Bengals can stop anybody. So yeah, I think the Bengals either cover by 1 million or lose straight up.
The over-under in this game is only 49.5. I love the over. I love especially Monday night. Monday nights are good points games this year. And it's really weird to me that the Cowboys have a better record than the Bengals. Like, that just, I can't really comprehend that. They're 5-7 versus 4-8.
The stats are mind-blowing. I don't know what's crazier. I've been seeing all the Bengals stats with like how insane Burrow and Chase of a year that they've been having and their record. And then on the opposite side, like all of the Bears stats are also fucking hilarious. They're the first team with a rookie quarterback to not throw a pick in 6 straight games where they lose all 6 of those games. Unbelievable. Like stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
A credit to whatever nerd figured that out. Like,
we're not stats guys, so yeah, credit to you.
Unbelievable. So yeah, those are, I mean, 2 of the weirdest teams, and the Bengals, I just don't have confidence in them ever winning a game. So I'm going to enjoy the Cowboys the rest of the season.
I'm taking the Bengals, by the way.
Nice. The beautiful part about the Cowboys, ever since Dak went down and we lost a bunch of bad games, is there's nothing to lose. Because if we lose, cool, we're a bad football team and we get a better draft pick. And if we win, cool, we won. Like the last 2 weeks, been exciting.
Didn't you want to lose something this season, Mike?
Well, I wanted to lose all the games to get Travis Hunter, but then I realized Mike McCarthy. Good. We're still going to lose Mike McCarthy.
Mike, today Dak Prescott, your quarterback, came out and gave his vote of confidence for Mike McCarthy. Thoughts?
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
Probably because he knows that anybody else would realize he sucks at football.
He's going to be your coach next year, dude.
No, he's not.
He's going to be your coach next year.
If he's my coach next year, I'm not watching football.
Yes, you are.
I've texted you that, and it's on air now. I'm more serious about this than I...
What happens if they win this game against a bad Bengals team and they're 6-7? Jerry Jones is going to be like, it's not that bad. Run it back.
Jason Garrett saved his job all those years by making the playoffs at 8-8. Mike McCarthy should be able to save his job by going 9-8 and making the playoffs. Neither one of those things will happen. I don't think 9-8 even gets you into the playoffs this year. And if we don't make the playoffs, Mike McCarthy needs to lose his job. If he does not lose his job at the end of this season, I will not watch the Dallas Cowboys.
You didn't have Micah.
I'm not watching the Cowboys.
He's gonna.
I'm done. I'm not. I'm done with this team.
I'm just letting you know right now that Mike McCarthy will be the Dallas Cowboys head coach in 2025.
I will be an NFL fan next year. I will take a year off.
Rob Lowe NFL hat. That's you.
I'm taking a year off as a fan. I can't go through this shit again. No, but I'm doing it.
No,
if the Cowboys keep Mike McCarthy and we don't make the playoffs, I'm not a fan next year.
You would say that for like 3 months of the offseason, and then they'd make like a second-round draft pick where you're like, why not us? And then you'd be fully back.
Unless we, in the offseason, traded Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott, I'm out.
Should be out.
On whatever that Monday is, whatever they call the Monday after the regular season finishes, where everyone gets fired, if I wake up and Mike McCarthy still has a job, like, all right, fine, I'll give him another hour or two because Dallas has a time difference. Like, if that dude is not fired by noon, that's going to be the worst day of my life.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'll write that down. I'll save it in the calendar right now.
The Cowboys need a fresh start, and the problem is Jerry Jones is still the GM, so they'll never get a fresh start. But what I'd love to see is to them bring in one of these young high IQ NFL coordinators that then become great head coaches.
You want
Like
Ben
Ben
Johnson?
Johnson. Wouldn't he
Yeah.
be cool?
Yeah, wouldn't he?
Like, that guy's cool. Speaking of coaching vacancies and stuff available, just before we wrap things up,
Yeah.
you see Bill Belichick
I
maybe
did
coming
see
back to
that.
coach.
That is interesting stuff
Fucking
there.
North Carolina? Like, is that really real?
Is that really the best job he can get?
Is that a job he even wants?
It's a cool program, like Chapel Hill, great college town, like great school, obviously, not a blue blood football team.
No, but now with NIL, it's all
About
about
it.
money, and you have to think the alumni of North Carolina
It
are
would-
pretty wealthy.
It would be a huge
And-
win for North Carolina. It would be a massive win for North Carolina because of that reason you just said right there. And I'm fully about this, dude. I want to see what Bill Belichick in college is like. I just want to see it.
I'm afraid it would tarnish his legacy for his sake.
It
I'm
probably
not just
will.
like a Belichick guy, but like
It's also kind of similar to what Brady did and how he proved himself. I know he just went to a different team in the NFL, and Belichick can technically do the same thing. But like, hey, if you go to UNC and you've never coached in college before, and you're getting old, and you're connected to Brady for a lot of your success, yeah, that's a great way to prove people wrong, man. Like if it works, right?
would he dare bring in Brady as like the OC?
He's an owner of a football team now.
Yeah, and he's comfortable in his box broadcasting games. Right. Like, I mean, but how cool would that be?
There's been questions like if he's going to even be able to continue broadcasting, like with the ownership thing.
Yeah, I think they said he's okay, but I'm not sure.
He better be okay. That would suck.
Yeah, he's cool.
That would suck. Yeah. I think Chris Collinsworth's on the hot seat. I'm just going to put that out there.
Ooh. I mean, if he's on the hot seat, then get Al Michaels on the hot seat with him.
Wow, that's been a thing. But like, think about it. I think there's like, technically 3 out of the 4 primetime slots. Like, I think he's the worst color commentator now. I'm taking. I guess Aikman is like not awesome, but like Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, right? Like that's the best of the best. But like Aikman as an individual, maybe not. If that makes sense. But then you got Tom Brady as the Fox guy, Romo as the CBS guy. You can kind of take your pick there. And then Herb Street. I love Herb Street. He's doing great on Thursday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
So like Chris Collinsworth, I think in like 2015 in like our high school days, like I think he was like the best color commentator with Al on Sunday Night Football. Now I think he's the worst. And like you kind of have to like keep up in the commentator race, especially when you're Sunday Night Football on NBC. So I think they might make a big move soon.
Big move, but also like it's hard to imagine them not like getting that seat ready for his son,
Right.
I don't know, like
I don't see that.
If that's what he wants, and
I don't see
his son is kind of fucking annoying too. But
yeah, no, I don't see that. And he didn't like play football like Chris did either.
No, and he probably didn't earn the college degree that he got, and he didn't earn the job that he got out of college, and it was all kind of handed to him. But like
Chris Sims would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
I've always liked Chris Sims. He did a podcast with this guy named Adam Lefkoe, if you know who that is.
Mm-hmm. I love that guy.
That was the first like sports podcast I ever listened to, and I listened to it religiously, and then they split ways. So I've always like just kind of supported him, but he's a very like anti Jalen Hurts guy, which has been tough to navigate. But yeah, I think I would be okay with it, and I know a lot of people wouldn't be okay with it. I'll put it that way. Or it could be Jason Garrett, Mike.
That would not be cool. The fact that I still have to hear from Jason Garrett and that he never takes the Cowboys side.
How does he work there? How does he have a job at NBC in any capacity? That has never made sense to me. Like, why him?
Like, why was he like the top guy?
Right.
I mean, it's probably just because a lot of these guys that are coaches, like they don't stop coaching. Like you've got Van Gundy in basketball that you snagged. I feel like it's a little more common in basketball, but like in NFL, like you sort of make up your mind. Like, what are you going to do? Like Greg Olson, Tom Brady, Tony Romo, Aqib Talib has been in the box a few times for some games.
Yeah,
like
McCourty
those
twins.
Guys made the decision to go to the broadcast booth. The other guys that go coach, they're addicted to coaching. They never stop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you're Dan Mullen and you're a fucking loser.
Fuck that guy,
But-
dude. Fuck that guy. God. Fuck that guy. That's a podcast.
Well, that's all I got.
Yeah, that was good, man. That was a good episode. One a week still. We'll stay on top of each other. Let's get this uploaded and let's keep winning our lock of the weeks. Why the fuck not us?
Why not us?
Cheers.